I'm gonna share. Okay, perfect. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm very pleased to welcome you for the last workshop of the support program for national level initiative that I will present very quickly in a few minutes. I'm very pleased to be there. I'm Suzanne Dumouchel, head of international cooperation at CNRS, working together with Salome, that you can see, who you can see as well. And we will chair the session, the webinar for today, with our two invitees, two speakers, Erzsébet from CoARA Secretariat, and I will try to repronounce it as well, Ketausna, something like that. Yeah, more, okay, great, thanks a lot. So let me share my screen and start to formally introduce the session. Oh, it's not that one. Yeah. Okay. So we have 2 hours together to discuss about how to assess national current fair enabling capabilities. This workshop, as I told you, is the last one from the Fair Impact Project under the program of that aims to support national level initiative. So I will do a very quick introduction that I already started. Then we will have 25 minutes for a presentation made by Erzsébet from the CoARA Secretariat. We will open the floor to all of you for questions, mainly questions related to clarification, not for discussion, but if you need to clarify something, something that you haven't well understood and so on. So just 5 minutes. Then we will have another presentation by Katarzyna on the metrics and indicators. Again, 5 minutes to clarify if anything needs to be clarified. And then we will have altogether a discussion really to address how to assess fair capabilities, especially on a national level. And I will close the webinar with more or less 10 minutes, probably less, to inform you all about the next step. So the workshop will be recorded. It is actually already and available on YouTube. If you have any question, feel free to write them in the chat and raise your hand during the question period. But you can also write them while the speakers are speaking. So it's help us as well to keep track of the different questions. Don't forget to switch off your microphone during presentation. Regarding the Fair Impact Project, so this is the answer to an InfraIOSC call about how to expand the fair solutions in Europe. So you can see how this type of program about the building a fair national plan is completely related to the title of the call. So it's a funded project about 10 million euros led by DANS in the Netherlands with 28 partners and affiliated entities. So the overall objective of the project is to realize a fair EOSC by supporting fair enabling practices across the scientific community. So it's not discipline oriented, and all the research output at all levels. So that means not only data, but also publication, software, and so on. And we have 3 ways to do so in the project: identifying the current and emerging components for enabling the fair, how to translate the viable solutions that have been developed for one domain or research output in another one, and defining the support, the governance, and the coordination mechanism that are required to ensure the function of fair enabling practices in the EOSC. So within this project, we have, in particular, the Fair National Initiative Support Program, which aim to propose a series of workshops, and this one is the last one on this topic, with the question: how can we develop a fair implementation action plan at a country level, so at a national level? So for that, we have a couple of organizations that have made an application that we help between the workshop to create and to set up their own FAIR implementation action plan by providing some documents. So they have the webinars that are open to everyone, plus dedicated support by the team, the partners of the project, to build their FAIR implementation action plan. So the main objective, as I said, is the drafting of this plan, which is composed of drafting the objective, what can be the actions related to the objective, the milestones to guide the action, who should be involved, what are the key roles and responsibilities, individual but also organizational roles and responsibilities, and the key priority. So determine the action related to the priority. So a quick reminder about the planning of the workshop. So you can see that we have 5 first workshops between February and April. And now today we discuss how to assess, because the evaluation actually is almost the last part. When you work on the FAIR, you provide tools, you build your management plan and so on, you build the skills, and then you need to evaluate to assess the FAIR capability. So this is why it arrives at the end of the support program. And in September, we will have a session, but a closed one, only between the organizations that we follow during this full program. So the topic of today, how to reform research assessment. We are very glad actually to have as speakers 2 people working at CoARA, so the Coalition for Advancing Research Assessment. I think we couldn't do better to have CoARA here today with us for this, to address this question. As a quick reminder, CoARA is made by 723 organizations that have signed the agreement to support fully this coalition in order to support new practices in terms of research assessment, and 10 commitments to reform research evaluation while respecting the autonomy of organization. It's quite challenging, I can assure you about that. So today's keynote speaker, so we have, and I won't pronounce the surname, I will stay with the name, I hope you don't mind. Today we have Erzsébet with us, who is the CoARA Boost Program Manager. And we have Katarzyna, who is responsible for metrics and indicators for the CoARA working groups. So both of them will help us to address actually the issue of assessing FAIR capabilities. And yes, and I think that's it for the moment. I would like to thank you all. Don't hesitate to write your question if you have some during the presentation. And now I will give the floor to Erzsébet. So Erzsébet, it's up to you now. Thank you. And you are muted, Erzsébet.
Yes, okay, sorry. Now you should be able to hear me. So hello everyone, and thanks for having me today. It's quite a pleasure. Also because to start with a fun fact, I do have a history with FAIR. In my previous role as the Open Science Officer of the Daria Eric, I've been following the emergence of the FAIR principles, I think, from the beginning, and part of my role was to bring them closer to research realities in the arts and humanities. And this is also where Susan and I met. So the title of, and then I think you will understand from my presentation why I moved closer to research assessment, why it's important for FAIR and for open science.
Erzsébet, I'm
yes.
sorry to interrupt. We see on the screen, we see both, we see the presentation mode. So not the full screen, but yeah.
Yeah, okay. Oh, sorry for that.
No,
No
fine,
idea how to change this. Look, how about...
It's okay, but it's not full screen.
Yeah, like, I'm trying to push for the slideshow version. It's interesting. why I cannot move it to full screen. Oops, sorry, let me try it once again. We
Yeah,
tried it.
don't worry, we are on time. It's okay.
Yeah. We tried it before and it worked relatively properly,
Yeah, but
I
it's
think.
always like that. This is why we shouldn't try before, just to make sure, the first time it works.
Yeah, but you should be able to see the same thing now. So both the next slide and the current slide, right?
Yeah, we have exactly the current slide and the next slide. Yeah.
Okay, sorry for this. Yeah, okay. I probably can't see the problem now. Yeah, sorry. Let me just reopen everything and restart the screen sharing. Okay. Just give me a second. I really try not
No,
to
don't worry, that's fine.
lose much of your time, our valuable question time, actually. Okay. Okay. If not, think, yeah, I mean, okay, okay, yes. Okay, I think I fixed the problem. So now
Okay.
I just have to share my screen and then we are good to go. And I said share and good and no, okay.
No,
Sorry. Then please bear with me. I mean, I really
it's okay like that. Don't worry, we can manage. Yeah.
Can I suggest something? Sorry to interrupt. You have
I
the
go to
display
display
settings. You can
settings
go there and
yeah.
switch monitors. Yeah.
Sorry, it took me a while. Okay.
Okay, that's okay. Wonderful.
Yes. Sorry. So yeah, I try to compensate it during my talk, but once again, welcome and sorry for the technical hiccup. And so the title that I gave to my talk, a bit of a clickbait, the Achilles heel of enabling fair, why a systemic reform of research assessment is a prerequisite for fair research conduct. And what I'm planning to share with you today, we are going to talk a little bit of why the reform of research assessment is not just another policy topic for us to tackle, why it's important probably for you as well. Then we are going to touch upon, Susan already mentioned that it's a complex topic. So we are going to zoom in a little bit why. Since I'm representing CoARA here, we will also see what is CoARA and where is fair in it. And at the end, I'm also giving you a couple of pointers on how to engage with the reform without, jeopardizing your own agenda and your own profile. But to open the stage for today's discussion, let me begin with a somewhat rhetoric question. So the question is, if you could change just one aspect of present-day academia, what would it be? As part of a landscaping study about scholarly communication that me and my colleagues conducted back then in 2018-19, we asked this question, and it may not be surprising that many of the responses that we received resonate quite well with this code below that also shows my own disciplinary biases. Reads, I think for me it would be changing the emphasis on the credit for the work being done. It might be a daydream, getting credit for all the wonderful things that you are being asked to do that are above and beyond just publishing an academic article or book. And it would help enrich disciplines, and enrich the public value of humanities and build up a better perception of what humanities bring to society more largely. So, as I said, the code doesn't even reveal my own disciplinary biases, but also highlights what many might call the Achilles heel of open science and the fair data ecosystem. That is, the scientific production had been moved from the bookshelves to the computer racks. And so a lot has evolved on how we do research, but the research assessment criteria and the values based on which we reward our colleagues did not evolve with them. As my colleague Paula Maszutso puts it, research outputs now encompass far more than what we can express in the 20th century construct of a research paper. Scholars deserve to be given credit for the many contributions they make above and beyond the articles. So I think if you are participating in this webinar, you are well aware that conducting research in an open and fair manner requires solid effort, which is currently unrewarded from academic career criteria, research assessment criteria. So it's an absolute precondition to change this for the better. But so before I introduce you to our work in CoARA and trajectories towards this reform, I want us to reflect a little bit on why the research assessment is a very, very complex endeavor, and also why CoARA won't tell you which new metric to use instead of the journal impact factor. So I think one of the most accurate explanation of why the reform is so complex and why a single organization cannot do this alone is what I call the vicious circle of publisher prestige economy. So if you have a look at the right side of the left side of this chart, you can see that the current research assessment methods can lead to a rather narrow focus on a small subset of research outputs that are undervaluing the important work in emerging fields, interdisciplinary areas, or born digital spaces of scholarly production. So as long as the hardest academic currency is the publisher prestige, as the prestige of the publisher, all the outputs that are not research papers will remain out of the scope of formal assessment. This has distortions consequences because as a result, the databases that are used for research assessment are not becoming inclusive with this diverse set of born digital research outputs, and therefore they won't make it to formal research assessment policies. As a result, publisher prestige still plays a major role in academic rewards criteria. They still dominate what counts and what doesn't count, and they incentivizes or strongly disincentivizes certain forms of scholarship, not to mention the strong quantification of outputs. That is, the circle gives you an idea about this vicious circle when it comes to outputs, but it doesn't even mention the quality, the integrity of processes, right? Or behaviors such as early sharing or collaboration. So to break this the big question that is very difficult to understand is very difficult to address is how to break this vicious circle of prestige economy. And what you can see this in this rather fat overview is that I was trying to bring here together a couple of actions, a couple of preconditions, a couple of basic angles that has to be addressed in a synchronized way. That is, we see a lot of social and epistemic dimensions. The academic communities, the researchers themselves need to redefine what they value in present-day research in terms of generic values, whether we value collaboration over competition, whether we value team science over individual achievement, but also whether we value integrity over high p-values and the like, but also consensus on disciplinary or cross-disciplinary levels. That is, what are the new, how we value born digital content types? What are the content types that are important for our disciplines? And how can we tell which one is high quality, which is not. And probably the third angle in this respect, the third most important angle is education. How we train newcomers, how we train PhD students to perform qualitative assessment, for instance. How we train them to recognize fairness. That's a very relevant question to you. But as fair experts in the room, you know probably very well that it has to do with technological angles as well. That is, in order to make it in any academic database database used for assessment, the content type has to be citable, right? So very strongly resonates with F from the FAIR. But they also have to be on citability. They also have to make it to big international global discovery systems and platforms that are used for research assessment. And on top, these information management systems has to be open, both on the level of services, or transparent at least, both on the level of services, on the level of data, on the level of processes. The third angle is probably the most straightforward when it comes to research assessment, the policy angle, that is, research performing and research funding organizations, policy actors, need to reflect on the values. They need to work towards diversified career path and reward broader type of contributions. They need to abandon the simplistic use of metrics and reward also qualitative assessment approaches. Otherwise, there is no capacity for them. So it's a very, very complex set of co-movement necessary for this reform. And only through this set of urgent and harmonized action can we work towards a truly systemic change. Which means that synchronized action from key actor group is really, really essential for research assessment to change on a truly global level. So this is where, I think this is where CoARA comes to the picture. So let's discuss a little bit what is CoARA and where is FAIR in CoARA. So what you can see here is a very brief history of CoARA so far. Maybe many of you, it must be familiar to many of you if you remember around the 2010s, from 2010s on, we see, I dare to say, unprecedented momentum from research performing organizations, funders, policy actors, infrastructure providers to join forces together and try to work on a shared direction towards this complex exercise, towards this complex reform. In July 22, the agreement on the reform of research assessment, which is kind of the constitution of CoARA, had been published. In December 22, CoARA itself, the coalition around the reform had been constituted. And where we are now, by early 22, as Susan said, we have more than 600 signatories of the agreement. We have more than 700 signatories. We have more than 600 members of the coalition, 13 working groups, 15 national chapters. We see early policy impact, and we also have a support project, the CoARA Boost project, up and running. So now you may wonder, okay, you have CoARA, nice, fair. How does it relate to the FAIR principles? So if you have a look at the 4 core commitments of CoARA, and if you have a closer look at the grounding principles in the agreement, what you can see is that while designing these core commitments and underlying principles, a considerable space had been given to a definition of professional research conduct, which is based on the transparency of both processes and methods, and on the fairness of research management, which means managing research data and processes so as to have findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable resources. For this, probably the strongest A resonating commitment is the first one. Recognize the diversity of contributions to and careers in research in accordance with the needs and nature of research. That is, to make justice to the digital. But also what is important is it's not about, okay, let's count data sets, let's count also data sets, let's count also shared softwares, let's count also preprints. To go beyond that level of thinking, the second commitment is just as important. Base research assessment primarily on qualitative evaluation, for which peer review is central. So to replace the quantity of the research output to the quality and integrity of it. What is really important about CoARA is that although CoARA builds on many parallel global very important initiatives such as DORA, the Leiden Manifesto, the Hong Kong Principles, one distinguishing feature of CoARA is that it's action-oriented. That is, those institutions who sign the agreement commit to implement these 4 core commitments within their own organizations, and what's more, they also commit to share their progress in what we call an action plan. So you can go to the Xanadu community and browse the collection of action plans. Here you can see a couple of tokens and momentum around action plans. Just to give you an idea of where we are in terms of membership, if you have a look at CoARA members by type of organization, you can see that the reform is in good hands. That is, dominantly, it's in the hands of research performing and research funding organizations. But you can also find these other relevant not-for-profit organizations who are, for instance, open infrastructure providers. Membership by country, which tells you that although CoARA is currently rather EU-centric, we have members from all continents now. And so Katarzyna will tell you more about the specific working group that she's representing, but I also want you to see the big picture. That is, here is the 13 CoARA working groups that are in operation currently. You can visit them, you can check them, you can check their activities on the CoARA website. But since this webinar has to do with national fair enabling dynamics, I also found it important to highlight the other knowledge sharing mechanism in CoARA that has to do with the CoARA national chapters. They are country-level implementation communities of CoARA. You can see on the right the list of them, currently 16. So they build a critical mass of these different organization types on the level of a given country. They build critical mass and they harmonize efforts on the country level. We continuously accept national chapters. So if you cannot find your country here, you can reach out to other CoARA affiliated organizations from your country and start coordinating on one. Here again, a bit of a momentum around them. In this February, we could bring together the coordinators of CoARA national chapters to a physical event in Porto to address overarching challenges and tell their own stories. Okay, just to mention at the end of the very short CoARA intro is that last week, 2 weeks ago, we opened a call for cascade funding to catalyze institutional change in terms of the research assessment reform. So this might be something interesting for you too. But to finish with, you may want to wonder how to engage, how to get involved with the reform without having to drop your own agendas, having to drop your own focus, right? So sorry for reaching a bit over. I just want to give a couple of pointers for you at the end, and I will be sharing my slides and you will be able to zoom into this in more detail. I wasn't sure while preparing for this webinar about the constitution, like what types of institutions are you representing? So I tried to pick pointers for each organization type that is relevant for CoARA. But what is really important is either you are a research performing or research funding organization. I think the reform of research assessment and the participation in this starts with reflecting your own values and mission, and see whether the assessment procedures that you have in place are clear reflections of that, or where are the possible sources of misalignment. I was trying to also include a couple of very concrete pointers for you on recent big changes happening in the landscape. You can see universities dropping their participation, canceling their participation in university rankings. There is a huge momentum on that. And there is also what might be even more relevant for you, fair people, is that we see a momentum, universities canceling their subscription of big black box systems used for research assessment. And they started the momentum in replacing them for open infrastructure, such as OpenAlex or OpenAir. Really, really exciting. If you're a funding organization beyond the ones I mentioned below, we really encourage you to look beyond journal impact factor and age index and consider all the possible roles and output types that are needed for high quality research. We also encourage you to revise your assessment criteria, broaden the pool of your reviewers, and keep your reviewers very close and engaged in conversations about how we define high quality research. As a concrete example, you can see here the recent move from the European Research Council and how they implemented the CoARA commitments. As a representative of a research service or open infrastructure component, it's probably the most of you are coming from such institutions. What I find really important to highlight here is to understand that researchers will contribute to or will populate to your service only as long as they receive academic credit for it, right? So having said that, your service is interested in the reform, therefore, and if you would like to elaborate on that, here is a recommendation of my colleagues, ex-colleagues, and myself. We put together a paper on this to contextualize the reform in the context of research infrastructures. I recommend you to check it out. And what you can also do is to see what are the content types that are especially important for the disciplines or the communities you are serving, and whether they are missing from the e-infra cross-national big databases, and how you could expand their inclusiveness. We see case studies, for instance, ERICS expanding the inclusiveness of the Open Research Graph with disciplinary content. But we see similar studies in the context of OpenAlex as well. And finally, if you are an individual researcher, a research support professional, or a research group, the generic advice is go with the flow, of course, follow the current praxis if you have to, but also think about your own values and voice them in committees, voice them in institutional, department level, community level, editorial team level conversations where possible. You can also be extremely useful by considering contributing to solidifying evaluation criteria for the content types that are important for you. Here is a case study that I put here on the lexicographical seal of data compliance, but you can find many of those in the GRASP OS collection of case studies. And if you are an early career researcher, which some of you might be, you can consider joining the CoARA working group on early career, dedicated to early career researchers. You can also subscribe to the CoARA newsletter, and here you can find, to finish with, a couple of pointers, specific CoARA pointers. But what I was really hoping is, beyond, gently introducing you to CoARA, I hope I could give you some food for thought and pointers beyond and above, and in close collaboration with CoARA. So sorry for the somewhat longer presentation. I hope you enjoyed.
Elizabeth. Thank you very much. Very interesting, and I think you managed to address very clearly this important topic, and also to give a good overview of CoARA. So, as promised, I would like to know whether we have some question related to what Elizabeth just presented. Is there anyone who would like to take the floor or to write? I think we have nothing in the chat, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. So I agree with you all that Elizabeth was clear. Actually, she's always very clear. But in case you want to have her detail something, yeah, add some precision on a specific topic, feel free to tell us or to write something in the chat. You have some echo when I'm speaking? Okay. Okay, sorry, Shokri. So I don't know what is the issue here. I hope I'm clear in any case. So if we don't have any question from the audience? No? Ah, yes, Shokri, please.
Yes, probably. Yeah, thank you. Thank you, really thank you for this great presentation, very clear and very helpful. I'm just, and also thank you for the great initiative that will, without doubt, challenge or transform the research ecosystem in not only in Europe, but also in around the world. So my question is, what did the individual have the opportunity to join the CoARA initiative or agreement without having any other without having their institution affiliated to the agreement. So I'm asking this because in our case in Tunisia there is a lot of initiative of researchers who would like to join such initiative, but unfortunately they didn't have this consensus or agreement of the institution. Do you think that do they have this ability to engage with in this initiative? Thank you.
Yes, thanks a lot, Chokri. I hope I pronounce your name correctly. It's a very important question. We should have touched upon that. So the answer is yes, of course. As an individual, without having an affiliation to a CoARA member organization, you can engage with the CoARA activities. That is, you can subscribe newsletters, you can participate at CoARA webinars, you can participate in some of the knowledge sharing activities. Unfortunately, regarding the participation in working groups and national chapters, this we tie to CoARA membership. I tell you why. First of all, we wanted to have these knowledge sharing platforms as kind of added values on top of the membership. So kind of like to incentivize institutions to join. But also the idea behind these is they are reflections of the agreement. They are reflections of this shared direction towards the reform. And therefore, we have to make sure that the contributors to this knowledge exchange mechanisms are in line with that. And we have institutional guarantees for that. And the last reason why CoARA had been optimized for really like institutional level instead of the individual is that in order to, give like weight, give teeth to the changes are there to say, it was important to have the players who have the powers, who are university rectors or directors of a funding organization and the like, who can are really in position to change the system, complicated multiplayer system for the better, have them on board on the level of the institutions. And therefore, yes, I feel your concern about like the individual participation is somewhat limited. It's not zero, but it's indeed limited compared to the institutional ones. We're also planning to roll out CoARA supporter badges that is free to use to all individuals and all not-for-profit organizations who are not CoARA members. Stay tuned for that. It's coming soon. And of course, we have sister initiatives such as DORA, who are more optimized for individual participation. One specific possibility for engagement, as I mentioned, on a case-by-case basis, we show certain degree of flexibility towards individuals. For instance, when it comes to the early career researchers working group, depending on the capacities of the working group, we are flexible with individuals who are affiliated with the university, but the university is not yet a core member. So there is a direction you can pursue. But if you have any questions beyond that, just drop us a line and we can continue the discussion from there.
Thanks a lot, Erzsébet. I hope the sound is better now. I tried to make some adjustment. I'm not sure it's okay, but anyway, if we don't have more questions related to a specific precision for Erzsébet, I would suggest to move now to Katarzyna. So Katarzyna, if you don't mind, let you share your screen. It will be easier for you. And again, you have 25 minutes, then 5 minutes for clarification if needed, and then we can open the floor for the discussion. So Katarzyna, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Suzanne, and thank you so much for having me today at this very important workshop for Fair Impact. And I'm very happy to present some of the insight on metrics and indicators, as already mentioned, and especially on responsible use of metrics and indicators, also showing the work we are doing in our working group of CoARA. So let me, in my presentation for today, after this short introduction, I will very briefly mention the workings of CoARA, and then I will move to present you the responsible metrics and indicators working group. And after that, I would like to tell you about the actions taken, what we've already done, and what are our steps forward. And then finally, I would like to share with you some insights for using metrics and indicators. I'm open for questions and discussion. So as Erzsébet already mentioned, responsible metrics and indicators working group, which I'm co-chairing, is one of the working group of Coalition for Advancing Research Assessment, and our working group was created in August last year. So far, there are 13 different working groups, and our group is focusing on metrics and indicators, but we have also other areas like peer review and research assessment, academic careers, and others. And I would like to tell you that all the working groups, as well as national chapters, we really complement each other in many aspects, overlap and complement, and it's very important that also we work with other working groups on some solutions and instruments for implementation. Our working group on metrics and indicators is in an area of interest communities as defined by CoARA. And I want to mention this because it's very important to highlight that metrics and indicators are actually used in different contexts. also discipline, institution, and I will go to that later in my talk. For our working group, I co-chair it together with Professor Felix Schönbrot from German Psychological Society, and together with Rachel Hayard from Swiss Reproducibility Network and Professor Davide Crepaldi from Italian Reproducibility Network. We are together in a steering committee leading the work of the group. And I would like to indicate here that the group is very diverse. So here are the founding organizations, 18 founding organizations of the working group. So 3 research institutes and 3 national reproducibility networks, 4 academic societies, and 8 universities. And for right now, we have over 50 different institutions. Of course, I will not go through all them, but I would like to just highlight this diversity of the working group, because we don't only have universities, we have diverse kind of universities, we have ministries, we have the funding organization, and this is extremely important from fair policies and for the goals of CoARA and for advancing research assessment worldwide and broadly to include all the possible stakeholders. So what is our mission? I would like to share with you the citation that, of course, we don't always use indicators, but when we do, they need to be valid, reproducible, efficient, and non-proprietary. So this is a big ambition of our working group to achieve this mission, which of course is very complex and a big challenge. So what are our objectives, how we want to follow this mission? First of all, we want to review the existing metrics and indicators which are used. And first, we want to focus on our institutions, our working group participating institutions. When we get all those information, we want to critically evaluate all these metrics and indicators used, and we want to develop new valid indicators. What is very important for us, we want to deepen the understanding of the determinants of using particular metrics and indicators regarding research assessment in different contexts, because the context is very important and it determines the use of certain metrics and indicators, whether it is an organization, institution, but also a country, a continent, a region, or even the culture context. Based on that, we want to provide a recommendation for advancing research assessment and disseminate our results in CoARA and beyond. So what is the action taken so far? So we started to work in August, and we've been working on a survey. So we ask a very simple question: which indicators are currently employed within the institutions which are creating our working group? So basically, we want to assess the status quo and answer the question where we are. And after, in a stage 2, we want to do the critical evaluation, and we want to develop the guiding questions, what we call the guiding questions and recommendation, when to use indicators and when not, and how to integrate their usage with qualitative modes of assessment. So what is clear from that point is that we don't want to introduce new indicators or different indicators or to make complete shift from quantitative to qualitative modes of assessment. We think and we believe that it is important at this stage to make it step by step and to make kind of a menu of indicators which are there to be used in a responsible way. And for the steps forward, based on the research we want to conduct, we want to provide, elaborate on strategic plan for dissemination of recommendations. So I would like to share with you a few insights for using metrics and indicators. And I would like to start with that. Of course, metrics indicators are kind of the proxies which are easy to quantify and easy to use. When we talk about metrics and indicators, we should pose a question on the purpose of the usage of metrics and indicators. And these are very diverse. So if you look at the slide, I put here that we identified in our working group certain areas or dimensions for using metrics and indicators. And when we look at the purpose of using the indicators, we can identify academic promotion, like PhD, habilitation, or professor titles in certain countries. They could be used for a job promotion or higher payment level. It could be performance-oriented, different kind of awards and rewards. And of course, very important area, it is the funding decision, that very often the funding of certain institutions at the national level was based or is still based on clear, not qualitative, but quantitative indicators. And of course, also general performance evaluation. When we look at the usage of metrics and indicators, it also refers to us researchers themselves. So we can talk about individual researchers, persons, but also larger group of researchers like research teams. Besides, our research outputs is evaluated, in example, papers, datasets, projects. Last but not least, institutional level, extremely important, because also entire institutions or large subunits like departments, universities, institutes, they are also going under the evaluation where the metrics and indicators are used. And what is extremely important, what we find out at this point, that there is really no synchronization between different dimensions of using the metrics and indicators, and between the different dimension of the evaluation. And I will also go back to that later. So Elizabeth also mentioned in her presentation different kind of indicators which have been used so far, like impact factor, different rankings of journals, rankings made internationally, but also we have the ranking list at the country level, which are not necessarily compatible with the quality of the research and with international standards of really quality research. We have the prestige of journals, which is taken into account, huge index, citation, and different kind of indicators of Scopus or Web of Science, and the dimension also of open access. So we can think and raise the question, why we want to do the evaluation? What is the purpose of our evaluation? What is the purpose of using the indicators? And what dimension or latent dimension of research indicators are supposed to measure? So we want to emphasize the quality, of course, quality of research, but this is very tricky and not easy answer how to measure the quality of research outputs of us researchers. And also the indicators can measure the quantity of the publications, for example, or the results of our work which we are doing. Methodological rigor, but what is extremely important, it is the impact, broader impact than quantity, the impact, scientific impact, but also the impact on society and productivity. So this is the big challenge to use a proper indicators and metrics in all that aspects. What is also important is who provides the indicators and who assesses the indicators, and what is the data source. Here we have the institutions that measures the indicator themselves, which are creating the base for evaluation of research. And I think this is very important direction where institutions themselves, universities of units, they consciously provide a certain compass and certain mix of or menu of indicators which are taken into account in that very institutions to guide researchers at different career stages. Could be underlying information indicator which is openly available, but also prepared by a service provider. And very often information is not openly available, but we need to buy it from commercial company. And also the national law is a source of indicators and data for research assessment themselves. So how to decide? Which metrics and indicators to use? It is really not easy answer to that question, especially when we look at this huge diversity of areas and dimensions which are important and which are the areas where metrics and indicators are used. Because as I mentioned in my presentation, we have different level of evaluation, we have different units of evaluation and different formal and informal distinction. Also, the usage of metrics and indicators is quite different and actually must differ across the disciplines. It cannot be the same when we talk about the social sciences and when we talk about the linguistics, when we talk about the medical life sciences. So it is also extremely important aspect which needs to be taken into account. And not to mention the differentiation across the countries and very often across the regions within the country and across the levels and units of evaluation within the countries. So we have a multi-layer context for using metrics and indicators, but when we want to achieve the CoARA's goals, it is extremely important that we are going towards the unification and more open, more transparent use of different aspects to assess our research. And one very important aspect, it is the level of usage of metrics at the level of country and at the level of institutions, because if at the national level we don't have certain reforms, then the reforms at the university level might not be enough. So what is the strategic plan for dissemination of recommendation? What we plan to achieve, it is to provide really integrative framework of indicator-based and qualitative research assessment. So we want to create really guidelines and indicators menu, as we call it, and compass of the usage. So no matter of the context, whether it is a country, discipline, or different institutions, they can be able to use this instrument we want to work on at the end of our working group work. And last thing I want to share with you, it is, of course, you are welcome to get in touch with us, and all the CoARA members are welcome to join our working group as members, but also we are welcoming what we call experts. So not only those who are CoARA members, but individual persons who are experts in the field and are willing to involve in a discussion on metrics and indicators. But also we are welcoming what we call friends, so people who just want to observe and be informed. And you are very welcome to get in touch. And our landing page is on GitHub, where you can find all the information. And we are planning to start the survey very soon, still in May, our pilot survey. And based on that, we want to conduct quite big research, international research on metrics and indicators usage across CoARA members, but also beyond, to get as much feedback as possible. So any questions are welcome, and I'm looking forward for the discussion. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot, Katarzyna. That was really great, and addressing the issue of indicators and how to monitor is a key one, actually. Either because people want to have too many indicators that are unmanageable in terms of monitoring, or because we don't know which one are very relevant regarding the purpose, and also because sometimes the purpose can be different if it's for internal use or for the funders or the policymakers and so on. So yeah, it was yeah, thanks a lot for this inspiring presentation. Before going to moving to the discussion step, do we have some question for Katarzyna related to her experience, related to clarifying some aspects? Any specific question based on your own experience when you have to define the indicator, when you have to Maureen,
please, yeah.
I see you want to speak.
Yeah,
please.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah. Okay. Katarzyna, thank you so much for that presentation. It's actually something that we are looking forward to as a team involved in research data management, where we get a lot of, I would say, reluctance from researchers to be interested in other contributions apart from research articles or book chapters. But my question is, at what level are you people now with these new research assessment reforms? For example, if I take a PhD student, or let's say in an early career student that I want to introduce research management to, how can I, based on your work, to get this person interested in contributing to other aspects of research apart from books and journals?
Thank you so much, Maureen, for that question. And this is very important question, especially for early career researchers who are new in the field, and very often they are lost in what should be the effects of what they do, and they are not aware that some journals are not really quality journals, that they are so-called not predatory journals, right? Or how should they know where should they publish, whether they should publish a book or a research, etc. So what we are trying to provide, it is what we want to provide kind of a map, guiding map, what we call the menu, where a certain, because it also depends on a discipline, right? On a discipline, which discipline are the researchers. So we want to provide the menu where a certain researcher from a certain researcher, or but also other institutions, where they will be able to find a way what to do, right? Especially what to do. But I believe that early researcher, no matter from what countries, they need to have a mix of research outputs. So I think for right now, we cannot eliminate one indicator or the other, but we should emphasize different aspects which are important and which CoARA is promoting, right? Like, for example, societal impact. So how your research can actually impact the society, right? Not only to have the publication in a journal with high impact factor, but how can this actually contribute to the community you are coming from, or to the community you are focusing on, or to the industry, or to the people. All depends on that. And I think that at the university level, there should be institutions or the units which are guiding the researcher. This is extremely important, that they know where to go in the first place. And those units, they can say that you can publish in some journals. The journals are with that score on that score, and these are predatory journals. So also this is a choice of a researcher, but we should also guide them in the open access mode, that there are open access possibilities which are more and more valued. So I would emphasize that mix. But what I would also like to mention here, and what was in my presentation, that there are different purposes of evaluation. And for example, we at the university level, for example, we tell the researcher, do not publish, for example, in this or that, but when you want to get the promotion, there is requirement at the country level resulting from the law that there is a requirement of impact factor, yes? So that also can happen. So this is a big challenge, especially that there is no compatibility between different areas of research assessment. We see that very clearly, that there are different requirements for the promotion, like PhD, for especially PhD, but also habilitation. There are completely different requirements for the evaluation of researcher at the university, but then there are different requirements in the law of certain countries, right? So this is a big challenge, how to harmonize it. And I believe that if we don't have we need a bottom-up movement, but if we don't have reforms at the national levels first and international levels, then it's gonna be extremely difficult, because we can have ideas and have great impact and open access, but then sometimes maybe we are not following the institutional line of our university or our countries where we are evaluated. And the last thing, that also the researchers contribute to the evaluation of institutions. And sometimes this is important aspects that institutions, if they are public institution, they depend on a public money to get them for research. So this is complex and complex, but we should guide the young researchers in that. Thank you.
Elisabeth, you would like to please?
Just to compliment.
I think it can then open the discussion, so it's perfect. Please, thank you.
Yes, because it was such an excellent question, Maureen, and I think Katarzyna almost told the things that was also in my mind about this. But just to compliment, I think what is really important at least in an ideal setting, which we know the reality is against, but at least in an ideal setting, the idea should be that such conversations, Maureen, I think should start with the values. So to throw the confusion, to throw the question back to the individual in person. Okay, you feel overwhelmed, you feel that you are under conflicting pressure, new existing proxies, old existing proxies and new non-existent proxies, then just step back from the game, from the evaluation game, and think about what you find valuable in your own research. What are the content types? What are the procedures that you find especially valuable, or if they are working in hard sciences necessary for reproducibility, and show them there is infrastructure in place already to share those kinds of support materials or primary outputs even. So to start with the question, what are your values? What are your strengths? And show them in your tenure dossier, make it happen. I just put an example to chat that we did with a colleague of mine. It's a case study with a fair case study with a linguist colleague of mine, Dr. Naomi Truan, who we did a bit of a reflection of how data sharing made her outstanding from the pool of linguistic postdocs. And if you Google at her name, you can even follow the career evaluation. So it's a big success story eventually, because when we did this, she was a postdoc at the Leipzig University, and especially her standing out and her data sharing behavior and her mature reflection on it landed her assistant professor job in the Leiden University. So it's a very interesting case study, but it started with reflecting on what she valued, what the strengths, what the narrative she wanted to tell herself. She was not waiting for the metrics to follow. She just used the available infrastructure. That's one thing. And the another thing is, I think now these days, even if the work on metrics beyond publication metrics are in the making, and thinking beyond this is in the making, these are slow processes, obviously, there are a couple of in-between solutions already. And I mean the data journals and overlay journals in particularly. You may know that currently, in order to satisfy the old proxies, many cases, I've been working with digital humanists. They work with software and databases and data visualizations and stuff. And what they do is they had to gift wrap their digital content type into a paper, so to make it citable, right? And data journals and overlay journals, so this innovative scholarly content type, aim to reduce this burden so that they can get credit directly for their data set or directly with their well-documented software. That could be an in-between solution to the problem that you highlighted. And thanks God, when it comes to academic promotion criteria, we see quite a wave of innovations, most notably in the Netherlands, but also beyond, where instead of giving your H-index or the journal impact factor of your publication venues, they ask applicants to list 5 main achievements of one's career, and it can be anything, a top 5. So, and a bit of a context about it. And these are very, very interesting innovations ahead. We see lots of experimentation with the combination of quantitative and qualitative approaches. That is, pick your top 5 publications, but with a so-called credit taxonomy, that brings transparency in how exactly you contributed to those publications. And this is a much more insightful, this gives a much more insightful picture about the candidate than, you know, like this stuff, first author publications. So we see lots of innovations here, but as Katarzyna mentioned, the difficulty is lies in the power relations between institutional, national, international players and the vicious circle that we covered in the presentation, if you remember. So this is exactly the kind of dynamics that CoARA is aiming to build a critical mass against. So if you are planning to make a change on the level of your institutions, you can just point at CoARA and the 600, 700 who subscribed to define the direction to your institutional leadership. But what we see, probably it was not anticipated at the very early days of CoARA, but it's increasingly important, is this institution and country level dynamics. So for this, we have the national chapters, and we are really just beginning to become a deep awareness of the importance of them and the importance of having dedicated venues where such sometimes uneasy discussions, sometimes power struggles, sometimes conflicting interest can be accommodated and tackled. And then we try to channel this in the national chapters.
Yeah, thanks very much. Yeah.
Thanks a lot. I have a question on my side, but before I would like to know whether we have some comments or reaction based on what Katarzyna and Elizabeth just said. So maybe I can follow up on that, because the issue then, I think it's not easy, but it's manageable to take this type of decision to select the indicators and so on at an institutional level. We have also the policy with the open science policy at the European level, but the national one is not an easy one to tackle. So we could have thought that because the national is between the organization and the European, it should be easier, but actually not exactly. We have the feeling, at least in my experience, that the national context follows mainly what is made at the European scale. However, when the ministries are in discussion with their own organization, their national organization, it's more for bringing some input or new policies rather than to hear what is needed and what is based on their own experience. How do you, or do you see some solution here or some aspects that we should implement at the level of the organization or together with other organizations in order to address this issue that we can face? And the question is for both of you, actually. So I've seen you have different angles. So yeah.
Yes, I can start. Thank you, Susan, for this question. I think it's very important question, and this is what I observe at the level of CoARA, this issue of national level and national chapters of CoARA, and also of working groups. So I'm also involved at the national chapter of CoARA, national chapter of Poland. And what I first noticed, I participated in a workshop in Porto. So what I've noticed is that we have a lot of overlapping areas between the working groups and national chapters. So national chapters, they are just constituting. And the Polish national chapter was created in May, and it has been like work in progress, yes? What to do and how to do. But first of all, I found it's really great compatibility and overlapping between the working groups, which are subject-oriented, and the national chapters. So there should be two-way linkages and two-way information, I think, from the working groups results and outputs to national chapters with recommendations, and also the other way around. So I think this is very important. But then what I think is extremely important is that some people are in the position to make change. Yes, and Elizabeth mentioned that too, to be in a position to make a change. Because, for example, if I push for the reforms at the institutional level of my organization, it is not necessarily reaching the national level, and it is not compatible with the national law. So I think it is extremely important that national chapters of CoARA are involved with the ministries of countries and with the Commission of Evaluation, as well as with main funding institutions at the country level. So this is extremely crucial. If we have people who are at the position to influence the change, to propose the change, then that should be communicated and collaborated with the institutions at the country level, which are responsible for research and for research assessment and for research at large. And I can say that actually it started happening in Poland. We had meetings of national chapters where representatives of the ministry, but also the Commission for Evaluation were present. And I think this is a very important step to make this change, because without that, we will not proceed. And I think then the other level, so then if national chapter can somehow synchronize the reforms within the institutions, not only because Polish national chapter is not limited to members, but to all institutions at the country level, that if they can propose some reforms which are taken into account, then it is all, start to click into the puzzle which showed in a slide. But then I think we need another step, which is the European level and the coordination of those findings of national chapters. So I stop here and I give voice to Elizabeth.
Thanks a lot, Katarzyna. It's so good I think it's such a great complementary that we have you here in the room as a kind of like closer to the more embedded to the national structure, because it's easy for me to make any reflections like just contributing to CoARA. So it's really, really insightful. Thanks a lot for sharing. It's great also very informative to me to learn about your perspective. But so indeed, national chapters is one thing, and I could, Susan, start my response from the bottom-up angle and from the top-down angle as well. I think at the constitution of CoARA, it was quite some thinking dedicated to how to find a delicate balance between the top-down and the bottom-up dynamics. That is, how to make sure, what I mentioned previously, that the actors who actually have the power to make changes are in CoARA, on the one hand, but on the other hand, we don't end up imposing upon something the research community that might be alien from them. And that must have been the reason behind CoARA doesn't include ministries, but instead relies on the one hand, a broader structure, on the other hand, a very tricky bottom-up dynamics. And what do I mean by that? By the first thing, I mean that you probably know that when it comes to, at least in the European research area, when it comes to policy goals, shared policy goals, because the EU is not only a financial shared market thing, but also like has a shared research agenda, we have the European research area actions, the ERA actions, which set the scene for all member countries pretty much. So like on the EU level research policy coordination, we have the ERA actions, we have the ERA forum as the instrument where the ministries are actually heavily involved, and national agencies as well. So ERA forum and ERA actions provide the primary means for ministries and national agencies to contribute. And there is a pressure on them because this is what they agreed on the common European horizon, so they have to follow. So we have a bit of a top-down pressure. And this is where CoARA comes to the picture, because the kind of dynamic the coalition is aiming to spark, the national chapters, to tell you an example, is, for instance, we have Italy. There are Italian colleagues in the room, I checked. In Italy, in a size of country that is Italy, we have 50 CoARA members from that not very big country. It means that if in an Italy-sized country, you have 50 or 50 plus CoARA members, universities or research performing organizations, they are big enough, 50 is big enough in that context to put a critical mass on the national agency as well as on the ministry and signal a shared direction and a shared willingness, so that eventually, it's a matter of time, the ministry and the national agency, who are, by the way, also CoARA member, have to address that. So this is the kind of dynamics, bottom-up dynamics, that CoARA is aiming to spark on the national level. And the good thing is that CoARA is global, so the critical mass of institutions on the national level can point at CoARA that, okay, we are 50 here, but there is 700 plus out there. They cannot be all wrong. So let's move ahead. Let's move forward. So these are the kind of dynamics that the national chapters are aiming to accommodate. And we are aware that these are not without conflicts. These are not without power issues. But as a support, as I mentioned, as a support framework, there is ERA Forum, ERA Actions behind. In the future, you can expect more collaboration between CoARA and on the ERA level, so interesting collaborations ahead. But what is also important in the national chapters is that they are having an important role also in initiating discussions with those institutions who are not yet CoARA members and who have concerns about the reform. So they have a very important advocacy role as well on the national level. And they also try to address not only shared challenges, as Katarzyna mentioned, but also very country-specific challenges. Just to tell you an example, in the UK, we know that we see that there is quite a heavy buy-in to DORA. So when it comes to CoARA, many UK-based institutions are like, oh, really? CoARA, just another thing to do? And the role of the national chapter is to systematically address this national level concern and explain how CoARA practical commitments to CoARA are aligned to REF, the national framework, and how they go beyond or complement DORA commitment and the like. But what you also hear from national chapters, especially like national chapters with Slavic and Latin languages, is it's very, very important to strengthen the discourse on these topics in the actual language of the country. This is something that CoARA Central or CoARA as such obviously cannot do. But we also see that it makes a big difference if somebody is able to sit down and explain the relevance and what is at stake in Italian and in French and in Spanish and in Hungarian and in Polish and in many national languages. So huge potential for them. We are just working on a follow-up report from this physical event in Porto that Katarzyna also mentioned. And we expect to publish it still this year with the involvement of the national chapter chairs. So more discourse, more context, more shared good practices and future trajectories around these topics are to be published relatively soon. And another, like I didn't have the time in my presentation to reveal a little bit, you know, like what to expect from CoARA in the coming quarters. But one of the strategic areas is indeed what Katarzyna just mentioned, that is connecting the dots. Also, by connecting the dots, I mean like connecting the dots within CoARA, making sure that national chapter outputs make it to the working groups and vice versa. That's quite a challenge, but we are looking over the shoulders of RDA and other big global organizations. How do they do this? And also by connecting the dots with the relevant sister policy agendas and broader contexts, not only ERA Forum, but also developments around the EOSC, most notably.
Sorry, I was trying to unmute myself. Thanks a lot, Erzsébet and Katarzyna. It's a very detailed answer, and indeed, I think it brings some suggestion, because now you know the goal is to draft the FAIR National Implementation Action Plan. So one of the key points is the assessment of the FAIR at a national level. So I think the different proposition you've made can help, I guess, the organization to work in this plan. Do we have some question or comments about? Is there anyone who would like to share his or her own experience about how to assess the FAIR in his or her organization or country? I mean, now that you see the role of CoARA, do you see how you can better work with CoARA or better address this issue with your own organization or country? Anyone who would like to intervene? Okay, so then I can continue with my my question. So we've seen that the assessment is and then I will with this question I will come back actually to the first point that you've addressed, Erzsébet, in your presentation, because you insisted a lot on the publication and the predatory journals. To me, so you know me, you know that I completely share this aspect. But how can we manage, because there is this issue of the predatory journals, but now we can also assess the quality of the scientific production with the quality of data, with other types of research output, not only publication. How do you see then, do you feel that there is less interest in terms of research evaluation regarding publication and more in other research output? I have the feeling, so I will completely explain my clarify my thoughts. I have the feeling that it's still easier, even if it's a couple of years now that we hear that we need to assess the careers based on not only the publication but also the conferences, the data, so the different types of output. That's great. But I have the feeling that this is still something very complicated to implement, and that a lot of reviewers or evaluators actually don't know how to proceed, and that there is still this idea of the key publication. For you, is it because the publications still stay a kind of graal, you know, in science? Or is it because it's easier to evaluate rather than data? Or how do you, can you, say something about that?
Yes, if Katarzyna can join maybe later. My perspective on this is super biased, so I know very little of what's going on in the hard sciences about that. I try to keep an eye, but I'm a humanist by education, so that's my comfort zone. And I just put bit of a reflection of this uncertainty. If it's an earlier paper on like fair assessment of research services and the like, and it won't tell you solid answers about what the new criteria should be, but contains some reflections. Indeed, what we can see, what I see is there's somebody coming from the humanities regarding the first half of your question, Susan, is we have this false sense of safety that when it comes to the assessment of traditional publications, so textual content, we solve this issue. And just let me remind that it is not the case, especially not in the case of books and book chapters. But luckily, we see quite a solid momentum to close this gap and include books and books chapters into open access and make the information management systems more inclusive with these kind of content types. So I'm kind of marginally involved in the Palomera project that has to do with that visibility of books. And also, I mean, you know this much better than me, that there are new important infrastructural components on the EU level popping up, most notably the Discovery Platform Triple, or a very good case study on like how to work on, or how much effort it really takes to make to showcase research output beyond the usual suspects. So that's still a very important ongoing line of work. But we see a lot of momentum around books these days. And what is really interesting, like in the study from which I quoted the opening quote of my presentation, we were curious about the exact same questions what you had in mind. And what we've seen is that although in the formal evaluation criteria, there is indeed this kind of momentum of uncertainty, the evaluation of software and data sets and visualizations and all these innovative outputs is naturally happening, but happening in contexts that are informal. That is, it's happening on Twitter, it's happening on Discord channels, it's happening in podcasts even. It's happening in GitHub a lot. Like I think one of the key steps towards the direction of doing really justice to born digital outputs is the recent innovation of now researchers can connect their GitHub repositories to ORCID. And so what they do on GitHub becomes visible in their professional CVs from ORCID. That was a huge step. I don't know why it happened just now. It should have happened 5 years ago or 10 years ago even. But the lots of evaluation and discourse obviously is happening in GitHub, GitLab repositories. For me, the question is how to channel those, or at least how to make those naturally occurring scholarly discourses from comments, from social media, from blogs, from podcasts, from all this organic discourse places visible in formal assessment.
Thank you. Katarzyna, do you want to?
Yes, thank you so much, Suzanne. It's really complex. It's a great question and complex, really area and issues. And I would say that it really depends. It depends on a discipline. It depends on a country as well, and it depends on where we look at. And I think in certain disciplines, it has been for a very long time that they used to publish in open access for years now. But at the same time, publication in prestigious journals were important at the end of the day. But I think especially in some hard sciences, this open publication and sharing the research output as fast as possible is happening. Also at certain universities, we see that this has been for years that research papers were published as soon as they were done. So this is one aspect. And if you ask me about, for example, the context of less interest in publication, I wouldn't say it's still less interest in publication. especially in the context of the country I'm based in, Poland. And this results from the evaluation at the institutional level, what I mentioned in this compatibility between the evaluation of researchers of research institutions and the national law evaluating the institutions. So we are in a process we will be in a process of evaluation. So all the institutions are doing all the efforts to publish as much possible in order to get highest score for evaluation, because that means money for the researchers, as the majority of the institutions in my country, they are public institutions. So this, I would say, it's even opposite, because it is a pressure on publication, and it is a pressure of higher ranked publication in the national rankings. So this is what is happening on the ground. But I think there is a movement towards this more complex evaluation of research assessment at large, for sure. But we see that in this Netherlands case of pointing the 5 most important inputs for PhD. We see that at European level for funding, that it's also the narrative, so-called narrative CV, that you are actually writing what you think it's important in your career. So it is happening. I would say that those researchers who are really, they don't look at the quantitative results, but they look for really impact of the research. They diversify because they want to have impact on a society they're coming from. They want to have impact. I'm in development studies, so it has been extremely important for me to be on the ground, to help the people, to look at the policy side, and also to share the results and disseminate, not necessarily in a high-rank publication, but to have these values, you know. So it's really important if we step back and look at our values, and if we have values which are compatible with the values of CoARA, this is you know, the way that we want to make impact, and in different areas, not only in the publications, but what I think it is extremely important, that this diversification of research output, including the publication. I think the publications are really important too, because both books and articles, because this is like tangible effects of your work. But I think it's extremely important that we have top-down reforms at the country level, which is not jeopardizing the work of CoARA and of researchers who want to diversify what they do, but then it is not valued at the in the evaluation of researcher or research teams. And the last thing I want to mention, I think the movement is there, the bottom-up movement of CoARA is there, but it's only, you know, like 2 years old baby. Yes, it started in 2022. And I feel it's still not enough knowledge about CoARA and the value spread worldwide, and not enough knowledge spread among the researchers that there is this movement and there is this shift towards more diversification of the research output. And I think we have a job to do, and especially this is important to put these values and to put this line of thinking among the young researchers. Thank you.
Elisabeth, you would like to? Thanks a lot, Katarzyna.
Very quickly, just a quick addition to that, regarding the part of your question that has to do with lack of solid evaluation criteria for born digital outputs. I think at the end of the session, it's worth reversing the question. So our research question for today was what the research assessment reform gives to fair implementation, right? But the question that fascinated me big time before joining CoARA, but even today, is the reverse, the opposite. What fair implementation on the large scale, at least in Europe, gives to the research assessment reform. And when I before starting this job, what I seen is that fair policies already became to impact assessment practices. We see the momentum with the, this certification or seal of approval framework. That is, we see the example I put in my slides, for instance, the lexical seal of approval, but I see the DOAJ seal and many other like such certification or seal approaches where a primary basic level assessment is performed on the digital outputs, just following the FAIR principles, like first certification, generic FAIR certification framework, or more disciplinary takes on it, in which the scholarly argument in the digital output is not assessed, but the basic level integrity. Is it well documented? Is it persistently citable? Is it operating with open formats? Is it accessible to the fellow scientific community? So basic checks like this on the very close to fair integrity are checked either automatically or semi-automatically or manually, but I think this can be claimed as a result of the pressure of fair mandates and fair mandates hitting research realities. So this is a very important line of synergy. And I see that in the near future, I expect that such momentum on the certification or seal approaches to basic integrity will follow. I honestly don't see how we are going to have the capacity to go beyond that and take a more scholarly look at born digital scholarly outputs. But this level of basic integrity assessment, fair maturity assessment is already a huge step forward when you think about how not to waste public research money. And this I certainly claim to the abundance of fair mandates.
Definitely. Thanks a lot, Elizabeth. Thanks a lot, Katarzyna. I think we are actually, unfortunately, I need to move forward. Yeah, maybe I can at least, I would like to introduce everyone to the two mentors, because one of the peculiarity of this support program is that all the participants are supported by semantic mentors. And today we have two of them with us, the two mentors that will support the members, the partners, if they have any question on this topic of assessing fair capabilities. So here I would like to highlight Joy Davidson, who is also the task lead of that manage actually the different support programs under the Fair Impact project. Joy, are you still there?
I'm here. Hi.
Okay. Do you want to say quickly a word to introduce yourself, I mean?
Oh, yeah. Hi, everyone. My name is Joy Davidson. I'm Associate Director with the DCC. And I think my colleague Sandra and I are here just to give you a little bit of practical advice building on what you've heard today. So if you have any questions, we will do our best to try to help you as we go through. So thank you.
Thanks a lot, Joy. And indeed, we have another mentor that will be here to support the applicants in their drafting of the FAIR National Implementation Action Plan. This is Sandra Burman, Project Manager at the Danish E-Infrastructure Consortium. Sandra, are you here? Yes, can you quickly introduce yourself?
Hi, hello. Yes, I'm Sandra from Dijk, based in Denmark. We are happy to help in any way possible. We also in Denmark we're working on a national strategy for data management based on the FAIR principles with involvement of all of the public universities in Denmark. Thanks.
Thanks a lot, Sandra. And so regarding the next step, so as I said today, it was the last but not least workshop on how to assess the current FAIR enabling capabilities. And I'm pretty sure now that all of you can go back to your normal work with a lot of ideas and suggestions about how you can proceed. And also keeping in mind that now we have CoARA, the CoARA initiative that is here to support all the scientific organizations in their road to better research evaluation practices based on the open science policy. So the next step now, so we have is this workshop beginning of September, but it will be a closed session between the participants who have followed the mentoring program in order to discuss their draft implementation action plan. In the meantime, they have some homework to do, and we have already planned a couple of meetings with them to prepare to support, to bring some support. Another program, not exactly this one, but we are working actually on a similar support program also for national level initiative based on this experience that will be launched end of September probably and until January. We are currently fixing the date and the topics of the different workshops. So please stay online, follow the FAIR Impact project in order to know what is next. And with that, I would like to thank you all for your presence, for your listening. In particular, I would like to thank, of course, our mentors who will be invited to support. Al for setting up the Zoom link, Salome, who has organized almost everything. So thanks a lot, Salome. And of course, our dear speakers, Erzsébet and Katarzyna. It was really great, very straightforward and informative. So thanks a lot for your availability today and wishing you a nice afternoon to you all. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you all.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Thank you.